Hello and happy holidays. Hope you've been able to enjoy the season surrounded by loved ones. And if you're alone this holiday season, catching up on movies or your favorite podcast, shout out to you. Know that you are loved and thought of. I come bearing a Christmas gift, my interview with the director and the lead star of The Plague, which released in theaters this week. A bit of a good news, bad news situation, though. Good news, we had an incredibly insightful conversation around the movie, which you'll definitely want to tune in for. Bad news, supporting actor K.O. Martin was also on our call, but due to technical difficulties, his recording didn't, in fact, record. So you'll hear my conversation with director Charlie Polinger, as well as actor Everett Blunck, but unfortunately not with K.O. Martin, who was phenomenal in this film. Hopefully the edit is seamless, so it's not too noticeable, though I do regret not being able to have captured K.O.'s responses. Apologies to K.O., who I hope our paths will cross in the future. With that said, here's my conversation with Charlie Polinger and Everett Blunck. Enjoy and have a happy new year. Welcome to Seeing This. I'm Mike Ornelas, and I'm genuinely thrilled to be joined by director Charlie Polinger, as well as Everett Blunck, whose film The Plague captures the anxious years of adolescence and tackles the bullying culture amongst young boys at a water polo camp in a terrifying and at times triggering way, reminding us of the challenges of being a kid. Charlie, Everett, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having us.
Congratulations on the film. Phenomenal job by all involved. Charlie, I'll start with you. Can you speak to the conception of this story? Has this always been on your radar as your first feature film? How did you approach all that?
No, definitely not. I made a short film set at a water polo camp. I didn't really know if I was going to ever make a feature connected to it. It sort of felt like a standalone thing. And then kind of like during COVID, I rediscovered some journals I had kept, and I kind of like remembered like a experience at a sports camp and the sort of idea of the plague. And I think I just had like a flashback to all these like experiences and memories and people I knew, and just suddenly felt like it could make an interesting script. And I kind of just dove into that, and it came together eventually. So it never was sort of like this big plan. It just was something that I felt excited about, and I was thrilled that we were able to find the financing, a few years later and make it.
I imagine that's why this took place in 2003. It seems a little bit of a personal story, the specificity of water polo. How did you go about directing cast full of children to kind of capture that time period and the way children were?
I think that just like casting the right people and getting the group sort of hanging out, it's not like, groups hanging out feel that different then and now, I think. And in terms of the time period stuff, I feel like I would try to give everyone like, some of the old tech, like the Game Boys and the Walkman and the boom boxes and certain songs.
Nice.
Like one of the actors, Caden, who played Matt, was like really got into Eminem during the shoot and would go around. He memorized a lot of songs and got really into it. But, I think by just giving a little bit of stuff like the music, it just opened the gates for some of the stuff that's accurate to the time. And even just the clothes, I think like wearing some of that stuff that's very like 2003, it just like, there's only so many ways you can kind of like walk around in those flip flops and those types of like baggy shirts and stuff like that.
100%. Everett, what were your first thoughts when you first read the script? It does have some heavy material within it. What were the first things that came to mind?
I really loved the script from the beginning. I think it's just, Charlie writes it so well. It was just a script that I feel like, so many people can relate to. It's not like it's not something that you have to watch as an outsider and just like, and just kind of see how the character is doing. It's something that most people can very much relate to and see it through the eyes of these kids. And I thought that was really incredible. And I also just think it's a great, I said this earlier, but I feel like it's just a great movie script that raises awareness to the state of bullying, that it's not always so outright and direct and like physical or big, that a lot of the times it's very in your head and messing with your perception of who you are and what's going on around you, and a lot of the times it's undetectable by other people, and it's not, and so that's something that Ben really struggles with, is that he feels like no one is really seeing that he's being really badly bullied,
Mm-hmm.
besides Daddy Wags. And so I feel like it was just very, I think it's just a very great relatable script that can kind of, that shows that it's, there's many different forms of bullying, and it's not only the ones that we can see all the time, and it's not only the ones that are so big and out there.
Did you pull inspiration for your performance from other films, other characters? Where did you find how you wanted to approach your role?
I loved talking to Charlie about the scenes, and like what his vision, because obviously when you read a script, you have your own kind of a vision of how you want to play it, or what your instincts are. But I mean, really talking to Charlie, because he's the writer and the director, and he has such a clear vision on who Ben is and how he wants the script to go. I think that was really helpful for me, and when I was stuck or when I didn't know what to do or I was confused on what his intentions were, how he would act, just communicating that with him and being able to work through that together was very helpful for me. And as far as inspiration, I don't know. I'm trying to think of stuff I mean, I know you recommended like Full Metal Jacket and all that stuff, and I know you said 8th Grade, I think,
Mm.
was one of them that you Charlie, but yeah, those kind of, that theme between those two, they both have similar areas of similarity, and so yeah, I'd say as that's what going into it, what I had kind of thought of.
I thought the performances across the board were top tier. Kudos to you guys, and that also
Thank you so
includes
much.
that also includes Kenny Rasmussen, who plays Eli, as well as the other actor who played. I believe the technical term is punk ass kids. Charlie, how did you go about casting this film, and how did you find actors that so perfectly fit the roles they were asked to play?
I mean, we just had a really extensive casting process. Like there were several thousand tapes, I guess. And it was about anytime someone had like a quality that felt like they were really had a good screen presence and they felt like they could fit in the group. And then it would be like trying to figure out what role to have people read and putting it all together. I mean, I had seen Everett and Griffin in the summer actually. And thought that he would be like the totally wrong type because I thought it was great in it, but it was like this completely different character. So it was very cool to see. I mean, even in your first audition, I feel like you came prepared with a character that was very specific to this script and completely different from Griffin. And that was, not only was I like, oh, he's amazing at playing this role, but I was like very impressed at the incredible versatility between those performances. And KO, I found on New York Nico's page on Instagram, and just saw videos of him going around New York and at the, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson show and all that stuff. And we kind of like tracked him down and had him come in and read. And for both of them, it was just very clear that like they were exactly the right person for the character. And it's kind of the same with the whole cast. Same with Kenny for sure. Kenny was actually like one of the first, like of the thousands of tapes, he was like in the first 10. And we were like, feel pretty sure that this is Eli. Feels a little early to make the call, but it was so clear, and we were, we cast him right away.
When Ben arrives, you kind of see Jake do a bit of a tactical pat down and kind of assess like, okay, where can I attack this guy, right? And Everett, your character Ben does come into the film quite innocent, just a normal kid trying to fit in, and over time we see him get a bit corrupted by the mob mentality of other kids. There's even the scene where Ben's talking, I believe, about Star Wars, and he's like, oh, I would turn everyone to the light side. What do you think it is about Ben's journey that made him tempted to lean into the dark side?
I think for him, seeing how much it's affected Eli and how much, like, his worst fear is being ostracized and being made fun of and not and being perceived as like not the normal kid and being the weird guy. And so I think seeing how much it affects Eli really scares him, and then when it starts affecting him too, he kind of starts spiraling.
Mm.
And I think for him, all that fear is kind of it turns into anger, and he kind of takes that out on Eli because in a way he might think that it's Eli's fault because, if it is really real and it's contagious and he got it from Eli. And so I think his fear, it comes from his fear, and then that kind of turns into anger towards Eli, and then he kind of, taps into that Jake mentality.
I love that. I love that. Charlie, we touched about the time period and the location of water polo being a bit personal. I just have to ask, where was the adult supervision? Is this something that you experienced, in your own life going at a camp like this?
I mean, it was. It felt like this to me, honestly. I know some people are like, there's no way, but this is my experience at some camps was a little bit, depending on the camp, but I think that I'm sure there was more supervision maybe than I felt at the time, but since the film is so grounded in Ben's reality, I wanted it to feel, and if you look closely, you'll see that we have adults kind of around more than you think, but we're so in Ben's kind of like cone of what he's fixated on that you're really not noticing it unless sort of his gaze is also going on to that, and he's trying to get, he's looking towards Joel's character for the most part for help or something like that. But I think I remember being at these camps, and it was like when, there'd be someone there kind of like vaguely in the building, but it was sort of like, way too much freedom. You're hitting that age of like 13 or 14 where they're letting you, as long as you're, you can't leave, but you kind of can do a lot.
100%. I appreciate your guys' time. Just one more question that I like to ask everyone that I talk to. What I know you mentioned, inspiration for this film, excuse me, was like, Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, and definitely got that vibe specifically with the cockroach scene. But what is a underseen movie that you'd like to recommend for people to watch? Maybe Everett, we can start with you.
Underseen movie. Let me see here. That's a hard one. I feel like,
and it could be for like your generation, my generation, just maybe a group of folks haven't paid too much attention to it.
This came out like last year, and I don't know how much buzz it got, but it went to my theater at least. But I really liked. This is like a completely different like area, but I really liked the movie Thelma with June Squibb, and
Yeah.
I really like that movie. I don't know how much attention it's got. I don't know if it's like considered underseen, but that's one of my favorite movies. And I think that's something I would recommend. It's really funny, and she's really great in it.
For sure. I think there's certain movies that like that's one of them. Like in like the festival circuit and things like that. I think folks have seen it, but to the mass,
it's way less mainstream.
Right.
I don't know what it's done since, but yeah.
Awesome. Charlie, you could give us a underseen movie you'd like to recommend.
Yeah, and do you want like a plague related one or just anything?
Up to you. If you want it, maybe a double feature that's been underseen with the plague.
Feature. I'd say on the plague related side, I don't know if it's really underseen. I think a lot of people love this movie, but maybe less with like American audiences. This movie, Fat Girl, I think explores the dynamic between these two sisters, who are kind of around this age, maybe a little bit older, and I think it's a great one. And then there's this movie, Bacurau, from a few years ago, amazing movie that, again, I think there's some real diehard fans, but I think it deserves to be, totally out there, and it's cool to see now The Secret Agent is.
Well, thank you guys so much for this conversation. The Plague is definitely a movie that I truly, genuinely enjoyed, and I said it in our main review of this episode or of this movie. Definitely doesn't feel like it's a debut feature film, so kudos to you and the team. I understand some of your crew, this was their first film as well, so send my regards to them. Charlie Polinger, Everett Blunck, thank you guys so much for your time, and nothing but the best moving forward.
Thank you so much.